Hi everyone, welcome to another Hatton's Model Railways live stream, and I'm sure as you are already aware it's going to be a bit of an extra special stream today as we're looking at the Hornby 2021 range, which has now been fully released, and we have every product available on our website. So if you do fancy skipping ahead and seeing some of the items already, do click that link in the description where we have full information available now. But I'm sure you want to sit down and learn a lot more about the range too. So we'll be covering the new tooling announcements. We'll also be looking at the return of some of the old favourites. And this really is a jam-packed catalogue this year. There's models in there for double O gauge modelers, whether you're modelling the real start of the railways back in the 1820s and 1830s, right through to locomotives that are only just coming into service now in 2021 too. So we've got a full amount of items coming through. There's over 360 items brand new that are in this year's catalogue, complementing some of the items coming through in the 2020 range, and of course the familiar Hornby range catalogue items such as track, decoders and other scenic items too. So let's get started, let's get stuck in, as there's a lot to cover on today's stream, so we will be here a little longer than usual. And as ever, if you do have any questions, if you're watching live, put them in the chat. If you're watching a little later on, please get in touch with our customer experience team or put a comment on the video, who'd be happy to help you out too. Let's get started with those new toolings though, my favourite bit of any announcement. And heading over first, we're looking at one of the mighty steam locomotives announced for a brand new model. It is the 9F freight locomotive. The BR standard design coming through from British Rail in the early 1950s, a development of the BR standard locomotive types. These locos came into service in the mid-1950s, unfortunately all withdrawn by the mid-1960s, despite having a shelf life lasting right through to the 1980s. They were a completely revolutionary design and immensely popular with crews, and also very, very economical too. Hornby have had a model of the 9F in their range since around the mid-1960s with various different toolings, and this is the first model they've tooled up for quite some years now. And as you can see in these images, there's very little known so far. We haven't got any CAD images to show off or any prototype models for you to see, but we have got some select images of the free releases that they are doing so far, with one locomotive in the early emblem livery as the locomotives were initially built, one locomotive being provided in the black with the Lake Crest colour scheme, and of course heading back over to it there we have Evening Star too, the only locomotive that was painted originally in BR green to commemorate the final locomotive built by British Rail in 1960. So this is available coming through. There's 3 different models so far, and we've been promised a full 8-pin digital capacity, the usual amount of details that we'd expect with a Hornby model there. And as soon as we get a little bit more info on that, we will be featuring it further in our streams and of course on all the pages on our websites too. They're available to pre-order right now. All the prices and information is on our website. Unfortunately, there's far too many prices for me to be able to remember in today's stream. So if you want the price information and the delivery date information, if I can't remember it, it will be down on that link in the description there for you. So feel free to head through and check that out at any time. So having this heavy freight locomotive is a great part of Hornby's 2021 range and a fantastic way to introduce ourselves to it too. But heading back over to the Big Four era, where Hornby really have made their mark over the last few years, with the introduction of the Thomson LNER Pacifics in 2020. This is a little bit of a surprise, but definitely one that's welcome. It is a fully new, super detailed tooling of the LNER Class P2. This will be a fully new model incorporating the locomotives as built, as you can see here, with both 2001, 2002 built to this initial design in the early 1930s. So again, great to see this model fully tooled up and coming back into the range. A railroad quality model has been available for some years now, but the model does deserve a fully super detailed version out there to replicate these unique 282 locomotives. But it doesn't stop there. There were further locomotives, an additional 4 were built with streamlining similar to the Class A4 locomotives, and Hornby has announced that they are bringing these through to the market too. With Lord President, as you see here, in the LNER grass green livery, also available for pre-order in that particular body condition as we see there on the screen, to complement the locomotive number 2002 that we saw there earlier. So 2 great locomotives covering the life of these P2 282 locos, which were used in Scotland and further down the East Coast Main Line from the 1930s until they were rebuilt in the mid-1940s. But even that's not all with this P2 story. As I'm sure some of you are familiar, there's a new P2 being built at the moment by the same company who built the brand new A1 Tornado locomotive. And this, again, will be covered by Hornby's model. The brand new P2 that you see here on the screen, number 2007, will also be coming through in Hornby's brand new P2 range. Hornby have advised that this will be in the condition that the new locomotive is being built. So that is coming through, as you can see. And again, details on those 3 locomotives, the full DCC specification, the eras and the price are available to see on our website. With both of those releases so far, they are still very early in the development stages, so we only have prototype photos to show, but we really are looking forward to seeing more of those as they develop in Hornby's range, and they are our 2 big steam locomotive announcements of this year. No less important, but heading over to that side of the range too, we have further A1 and A3 locomotives. Slightly smaller here, we're heading over to 462 wheel arrangements now. And some people initially may have thought that these were just re-releases. They aren't. These are brand new tooled models of Gresley's first Pacifics, the A1 Pacific locomotives, the first originally built for the Great Northern Railway just before the grouping, but made their names as LNER designs. The A1 will feature firebox flicker and will also have a fully die-cast chassis too, and have an increased level of detail over the model that's been in Hornby's range for around 16 or 17 years now. So as you can see there, it will be produced with the original Great Northern style tender and in the original A1 condition. We have both Doncaster and Knight of Thistle available to pre-order now in that LNER green livery. So again, really good to see this prestigious LNER Pacific being upgraded to match the models that are coming out now, including the brand new P2 we mentioned a couple of moments ago, and also the Thomson Pacifics announced as part of the 2020 range. But if you're doing an A1, get me words right. If you're doing an A1, surely you need to do an A3 too. The rebuilt versions of the A1 locomotives, some built as A3s in the late 1920s, and of course locomotives rebuilt as A3s in the later period too. Hornby have decided to fully retool the A3 locomotive also, with 2 initial releases covering Flying Scotsman in its early 1950s condition, as we see here, with the Gresley-style 4-wheel tender, as opposed to the Great Northern tender we saw previously. And also a version is being released in wartime black. So 4 initial releases there, 2 A1s and 2 A3s in these initial Gresley Pacific. So it's great to see this model being overhauled with a fully new tooling to complement the level of detail that's coming through in models in 2021. So there's our 3 big steam locomotives, brand new announcements from this catalogue. We're going to get a little bit smaller for our next items that we're heading over to. This is the Ruston 88DS diesel shunter. Now these are a development both in real life and in model form too, of the 48DS diesel shunters that Hornby have had in their range for around a couple of years now. And these allow some different variations of slightly larger locomotives. Hundreds of these designs were built in the 1940s and 1950s for quite a few different areas. This first livery here we see replicating the style of the North British Railway was actually used in a distillery in Scotland, and I believe the locomotive is preserved in this livery to this day. The second livery that we can see there was the famous Rowntree's Sweets and Chocolate Factory up in York, which had their own locomotive fleet too, in the quite iconic dark green, familiar to how many Rustons were delivered. But this is where the story takes a slight change. Whilst the recently released 48DS diesel shunters were purely industrial locomotives, apart from one, a small number of the 88DSs have worked for British Railways, and many of these are now coming through in model form with the chance to replicate them. And two distinct BR colour schemes are coming available if you do want to put one of these pint-sized little shunters onto your layout. We have here first the departmental locomotive in the BR green there, so appropriate for you late 1950s, early 1960s modelers. These were based around the northeast, as you can see here depicted on this locomotive, and used both in civil engineering works and at locomotive depots too. You wouldn't really find them heading out onto the main line, pulling a long train, but at the same time finding really important work in some of the depots across the northeastern region there. Not many of them survived the 1960s, and these were replaced by smaller shunters. However, one did make it a little bit longer, and this will be covered by Hornby's model. All of the models you see here today are available to pre-order right now, of course, including number 20 here. This was a locomotive, I believe, based at a civil engineers or a signal and telegraph base in Reading right through until the early 1980s. So again, you wouldn't see it on the front of a 10-coach express, but it's still something very unusual to have an industrial locomotive in that BR blue livery there. So if you have a small depot layout or a civil engineer's yard, this is the ideal design for you. The locomotive will feature a lot of the same features that the 48DS came with. However, with that slightly larger wheelbase that we see here on these models and the slightly larger design, this model, we believe at the moment, will not be supplied with a match truck as the 48DS was, with everything, including the pickups, fitted into the locomotive itself, and also with a 6-pin digital socket. We're not too sure on the lighting yet. We've still got to have that confirmed, but as and when we get more information on this model coming through, we will be able to add that to our website. So this is currently at the render stage, as we see here. Hornby may have a sample that we'll see very soon in the future too. So do head over if you like the look of these very small, but very perfectly formed little shunters. So that rounds us up pretty much for new tooled locomotives. Heading over to new tooled rolling stock now, and Hornby have launched a range of generic 4- and 6-wheel coaches, which are coming through in a variety of different pre-grouping, Big 4 and early BR colour schemes. These complement a lot of locomotives already available in Hornby's range, with many liveries being replicated, such as the 1930s style GWR shirt button that you see here on the screen. Heading through then, we have the Great Northern Railway teak with the lined yellow effect. LSWR colour schemes there with the salmon and umber colours, and many more that are available to pre-order on our website now too. So there are several different variations of these being made, with both 4- and 6-wheel variations coming through. The 4-wheel coaches are based on the London, Brighton, South Coast Railway Stroudley coaches, which are being developed again, and these coaches are available in the LBSCR livery as well as a range of others. The 6-wheel coaches are based on a North British Railway design, which I think I have an image to hand. If not, I've certainly got a BR image here. So these particular coaches are based on that North British design, but are coming through in a variety of other liveries, including GWR and LNWR, and also the North British Railway livery on its own too. So these are worth a bit of a closer look. There's many different variations on our website now. There's full versions there of these particular coaches, and the livery renders that we can see here on the screen again. This is just a very small selection of the vehicles and the vehicle types that are coming through. You can see there both a full brake, I think that's a full third, or maybe a composite coach on the right. Just can't quite see the numbers and the classifications on my screen, and then you have the brake vehicle on the bottom there too. So these are coming through in a variety of colour schemes and are expected in the spring. So head over to our website now if you'd like to take a closer look at those. Heading right back even further in history now, we're going back from the Edwardian era right through to the start of Britain's railways. And of course, the Hornby Rocket is one of the most famous releases from Hornby's 2020 range, a fully new tooled variation of this model with passenger coaches announced later in the year. And we see these returning to the catalogue in 2021 as part of a free pack that you see here. So there are further opportunities to pick up some of these coaches. There's also some great opportunities out there too to pick up further vehicles with another rocket pack coming through, featuring for the first time one of the first class mail coaches that are being produced to go with the pack. So you have the original style coaches, you have the open coaches that we've just seen, and then the mail coach too. But what about freight? Freight was an important part of these very early railways, transporting cotton and goods between the ports at Liverpool and the cotton mills and industries of Manchester. And Hornby have chosen to commemorate this with these generic flatbed style wagons that we see here, based again on illustrations and historical documents from the opening of the railways in the early 1830s. These are the ideal way to get freight traffic onto your replication of the models that are coming through there, with the amount of people that are modelling the particular railways coming through from this initial era now of the 1820s and 1830s. Some great ways to get freight on there too, and hopefully we'll see more and more locomotives and rolling stock from this initial launch period of the UK's railway network coming through in the future. Both of those sets are available to pre-order right now, as is a further variation of the Rocket Train Pack, which includes the famous 022 locomotive and 3 items of rolling stock, one each of the open coach, the third class coach, and the flatbed wagon we've just seen, and also the mail coach too there. So do have a bit of a look on our website for both the packs that we see here for additional rolling stock for your Rocket model, or indeed if you haven't picked one up yet, there will be further information there too on extra models. So carrying on through the new toolings, we're still quite deep in the area of new toolings with a lot to cover just yet, so we'll be carrying on. And this is not quite an unexpected announcement, but still a very welcome one, of Mark IV coaches to complement the Class 91 and other locomotives announced last year. These again are a fully new tooled variation of these particular coaches being replicated in all of their forms. So you'll have the trailer standard open vehicles, the disabled access accessible toilet vehicles, the restaurant modular vehicles, first class vehicles, and of course the driving van trailer there too. So you'll be able to recreate a full rake of the Mark IV coaches on your layout. Now there's quite a few things out there that these will complement, and the liveries are designed to complement these too. Many of you will already have Hornby's Class 91 on pre-order, which is expected to arrive with us within 2021. And now you will have the full rake of Mark IV coaches to run behind it there too. This is the initial livery that's coming through, the Intercity Swallow, as the coaches were constructed in the 1880s. Sorry, the 1880s, the 1980s, selling them a little bit longer than they lasted there, I do apologise. But these were constructed in the 1980s for use on the East Coast Main Line with a variety of operators, the main 3 being Intercity, which we saw on the first livery there, Great Northeastern Railway from the late 1990s, another livery available to pre-order right now, and finally the London Northeastern Railway, whose livery is still being used on these vehicles with the Class 91s remaining in service. All 3 of those colour schemes are available to pre-order. The vehicles are sold individually, including the DVTs and the various other coach types that I mentioned previously. Some other colour schemes that are coming through there. We have the Transport for Wales livery. that will be replicated on these coaches. This will be provided with a Class 67, as you can see on the screen, and these are going to be launched very soon in real life. I believe early 2021, we'll see these sets come into service on services between Holyhead, Cardiff, and other duties along the Welsh and English border. So these replace earlier loco hauled services operated by the Class 67s, but now in the distinctive Transport for Wales livery. So if you don't have an electrified layout, you still have a great opportunity there to pick up the Mark IV coaches and put those onto your rates. Full details are available right now on our website. Again, these are quite early in production, so we don't have any model images at the moment. As soon as we do, we will be putting those on our website. We do also have coach classifications on there, but at the moment, Hornby haven't provided running numbers. So again, as soon as those are confirmed, we'll be putting those on our website too. Sticking with the coach theme, we have the latest incarnation of Hornby's Mark I coach. This time, freshly toured body-wise, is the BCK, or the Brake Composite Corridor. This complements a growing range of Hornby's Mark I vehicles. We've seen very recently, within the last couple of weeks, the release of the restaurant buffet car, and this grows the range from previous extra releases such as the Brake Second Open, the First Open, which complemented Hornby's initial coach range from around 2016 or so. These are expected to have the full same level of detail with metal wheels, impeccable printing on there too, and full NEM couplings and interiors. These coaches have both a first class and standard compartments, with the first three on the left there being standard class and the right hand compartments being first class, both with their own toilet areas too. The amount of seating in this coach means that the brake area was quite compromised, but you still have a small brake area towards the rear of the coach, and Hornby have acknowledged this too. So we've got the initial liveries there. We've got your standard BR green, BR blue, the colours we'd expect, BR maroon coming through there too. But a couple of changes on this mean that we're getting some more modern liveries also. For the first time, we're seeing the Intercity Swallow livery replicated on the Mark Is with the special white roof here, which was used on special charter services within the 1980s and within the 1990s. Hopefully we'll see some of Hornby's other Mark I coaches replicated in this same livery to recreate some of those famous rail tours that ran with both steam and diesel locomotives in that era and those iconic Intercity coaches. Finally, bringing us right up to date here, we have the Network Rail test train variation of this particular coach. Again, many Mark Is, after their use on the UK's railways, did see use and still see use as departmental vehicles for rail testing and other duties. And these are sure to be popular, as is any item from Hornby's Network Rail range. So do have a bit of a closer look there if you want to pick that one up. I think that's one that will sell out very quickly indeed. It's always quite a popular livery when it comes through. So it's great to see Hornby adding the BCK to their Mark I story. It is another important part of the tale there, and there is a lot more potentially to do in the future too. So who knows where Hornby will go next with their Mark Is, maybe making some more body styles in the future, but the BCK is a fantastic addition to their 2021 range. Heading back down to the Southern, we're looking at part of their growing range of Maunsell coaches. And these are, I believe, the restaurant kitchen thirds that we can see here. So these are dining coaches complementing the restaurant coaches that were delivered around 2 or 3 years ago now. And these are coming through in a variety of liveries. We see here the SR's olive green as initially constructed in this initial works photo. And then heading over to a livery more appropriate for you BR era modelers of the Southern region, we have the Southern region green here. By this time, the coach is a composite vehicle. You can see there the different classifications on this restaurant car. Again, these are very early in the development stage at the moment, with a lot more to be seen. We just have some prototype photos to show you right now, as we can see on the screen. But as more and more details do come through on this model, we'll be featuring them on our website. You can get them now in the olive green livery of the Southern Railway from the 1930s and the late 1950s and early 1960s colour scheme of the BR Southern region. There's 2 different running numbers available for both liveries there, and as ever with everything else I've shown here today, all the details are available right now by clicking the link in the description. I'll just give you a sneak preview of our website there. If you follow that link, you will find full details on both the new toolings that we're covering here and now, and also further information on the additional models returning to the range there too. So all 360 plus models are available to see there right now. Anyway, back to the Southern Railway. Let's head down, because we're not just getting that dining vehicle this year. We're getting a fully retooled version of the Bogey Luggage van. These were introduced in real life in 1927 and used all across the Southern region. Once they came into BR service, they were seen sometimes on inter-regional duties, but did return home on these services too. They were used for a huge amount of different duties, covering newspaper work, postal traffic, and also accompanied a lot of the expresses to the Channel ports, transporting passengers' luggage, hence their name, the Bogey Luggage van. So these were introduced in the olive green livery that we see here. And this again is one of 2 available to pre-order in this colour scheme, with 2 different running numbers featured. Again, for you BR modelers, we have a BR variation that you can see on the screen in the crimson livery of the mid-1950s. Again, still used as either part of parcels rakes or complementing some of those cross-channel services that ran to and from the Channel ports in the southeast of the UK. This is also getting quite unfortunately, a bit of a sombre 3rd release too. And this is the vehicle that was painted in Pullman, umber and cream, and used as part of the funeral train for Sir Winston Churchill in 1965. This is a commemorative livery that was used, unfortunately, to transport his coffin at the time, but it was an important part of that service. And the locomotive is being released again, number 34051, to complement the coach that will be coming through there too. But to head back to the cheerier side of this, this is a fully retooled model, as is everything we've seen so far. Hornby have had a vehicle similar to this in their range from around the mid-1960s, but this is the first time it has been retooled and fully upgraded into a 21st century quality model that we'll be seeing coming through. And we can see there more information on that very soon. We've got high quality images of those models that we can see there at the decorated sample stage on our website, available to view now if you want a closer look at either the SR olive green, the BR crimson, and of course that final livery there that we saw with the Winston Churchill funeral train. So that then does cover the full roundup of new toolings. And as you can see, we've had a wide variety of different items heading straight back to 1830 and the start of the railways there, with new variations and parts to add on to our rocket locomotives. The turn of the 20th century and the pre-grouping era sees the addition of the generic 4- and 6-wheel coaches in a variety of different colour schemes, as we can see here. Heading into the Big 4 era, we see some great additions to the LNER Pacific range and large engine range too, with the retool of the P2 282s in the original and streamlined form, and also a deserved return and retool for the original style A1 and A3 Pacifics. Heading into the BR era, we can't forget, of course, the standard class 9F that we saw right back at the start of the stream there, coming through in 3 new liveries to start us off with, commemorating these successful freight locomotives and their place in preservation there too, with the Evening Star that we see on the screen. This is a model that we've mentioned again that is part of Hornby's range and has been for quite some time. So it's a welcome return to Hornby's 2021 catalogue. Finally, we've still got a couple of new toolings to cover there too. And of course, we have the Rustons that we mentioned towards the start of our stream, the 88DSs, and finally the Mark IV coaches, which are complementing the Class 91s and other diesel and electric locomotives coming through. All of those, you can check out more information by heading over to the link in our description. But we've only just scratched the surface with Hornby's catalogue, and whilst there are 360 plus items, I won't be able to show you every single one today, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to. We will be covering them in detail in future streams, so keep an eye on our YouTube page. But I want to show you, whilst I'm here, some of my favourite returning locomotives or new liveries that have been seen in the 2021 range so far too. We have 3 locomotives, a Princess Coronation and 2 Merchant Navies that have been partially retooled as part of the rebranded Hornby Dublo range. These are fully super detailed 2-rail locomotives, but harking back to the original days of the Hornby Dublo releases in the 1950s and 1960s. You can see that this model does have a fully retooled die-cast body, as do the Merchant Navies, to replicate the style of the Hornby Dublo locomotives that were released over 50 and 60 years ago. Otherwise, all the details are the details we've come to know and love, with 8-pin digital sockets in there and all the features, including super detailed parts and, of course, a 5-pole motor in there. So the die-cast chassis really harks back, and the die-cast body there too, but at the same time, we are still getting a 21st century model. There's 3 of those commemorative Hornby Dublo versions that are available to pre-order now as part of the 2021 range. Looking at some of the re-liveries there, we see some new liveries announced for the W1 Hush Hush. This was announced as a 2020 new tooling, and we're expecting to see the initial locomotives from this very soon indeed. But Hornby have already built on the success of this forthcoming model with further liveries announced, such as the Engineer's Grey, as we see here on the streamlined version of this locomotive. We see a lot of locomotives returning to the range, which haven't been part of the range for quite a few years too. The main one of those I thought I'd pull out for you is the Clan locomotives. These have been sought after by a lot of collectors, a model of the British Rail Standard Class 6 Pacific locomotives, of which there were 10 built, an 11th replica is currently under construction. Mainly used in Scotland and sometimes the northwest of England, these locomotives were quite obscure in real life, but they were one of the smallest Pacific designs to work in the UK and had a very similar look to the Britannia locomotives, which were their larger cousins too. So there's 2 variations of the Clan returning to the range there, and these will be coming through in 2021, so you can pre-order those now. That's just a small, very small amount of the steam locomotives we've seen before returning to the range. We have new liveries for the BR Standard Class 2, the large prairie locomotives. And we also see some old favourites return in the form of the Princess Royal. And finally, at the very small end of the range, we see the E2 tank locomotives returning in the South Eastern Chatham Railway colour schemes as part of the railroad range. Heading over to modern traction now, we start right up to date at the end of 2020 with a train that is only just entering service in real life. This is the ScotRail fully refurbished Class 153 unit. These have been bought by ScotRail and will be partnered with other multiple units used to transport bicycles, passengers, etc., through the Highlands of Scotland, making sure that more people can take advantage of these eco-friendly modes of power to transport their camping equipment or other equipment on these trains too. There's a huge amount of bicycle space been included in these fully refurbished units, and Hornby is replicating these in model form with the distinct ScotRail livery and its individual design, again, that you can see on the screen there. So these are perfect for modelers of the modern Scottish scene, and will complement a lot of multiple units that these units will be ran with to increase capacity for bicycles, etc., heading into the Highlands and giving extra capacity on services for tourists there too. So there's two different variations of this coming through again, and they incorporate different running numbers, and of course both are available to pre-order now. Sticking with the modern attractions theme, we see a return for the Class 87 for the first time in this unique, I believe it's unique anyway, I don't think any other passenger locomotive got this livery, the original style BR black with large logo. This was very quickly superseded and replaced by the BR blue with large logo, but 87006 was one of the few locomotives in passenger service to receive this livery in the early 1980s, and now it's replicated in model form there too on Hornby's very latest version of the Class 87 model, which is a critically acclaimed release, and you can see more videos of those locomotives performing on our channel. As well as main range locomotives, we see a great return for other items in the collection too, with the Railroad Plus range announced last year, enhanced by a lot more locomotives. We see Class 20s coming through, further Class 73 releases. There's additional releases with TTS sound for the popular Deltic Class 55 locomotives. And for those modern modelers, there's a range of Class 47s and Class 66s coming through in the Railroad Plus range too. This is just one example here, which is number 47813 in the Rail Operations Group livery, and appropriately at the current time, the Thank You NHS branding on that model too. There's around 12 to 15 of these different Railroad Plus models coming through to the range, and what that means is you will be getting a railroad quality model with a 5-pole motor and a digital socket. Not quite the same level of detail that you'd expect with a full price super detail model, but the Railroad Plus range does have the enhanced printing quality on there too. So you are getting the same printing level of detail as you would with a standard release. So they're a great way, if you are a modern image modeler, to get some locomotives onto your layout at a budget price, but not have to skimp on the quality of delivery of those locomotives too. So as mentioned, we have examples of classes 37, 20, 47, 66 and 73 within that range, and there's quite a few different private and British Rail operated liveries in there, so have a bit of a closer look. Finally, last but not least, one that has to be one of the most requested liveries I've seen for quite some time. Hornby have responded quite quickly indeed, and this of course is the Midland Pullman Class HST. This has been fully refurbished by Locomotive Services Limited and ran as a full first-class charter train, with its initial duties being operated in December 2020. So this is a train that's only been on the tracks for around a month or so now. And again, it's a great opportunity to get this onto your layout. The classic livery from the original blue Pullman of the 1960s has been fully replicated on the HST, both in real life and in model form too. And this will be coming through, as you can see here, with a 2-car train pack covering both of the power cars. You have the top vehicle there powered, and the bottom vehicle will be a dummy, but both will have digital decoder sockets for sound and for operating the directional lights within these vehicles too. Sold separately are the intermediate coaches, the 7 or 8 coaches that are used to form this distinctive rake, which we'll no doubt see a lot more of on the UK's railways within 2021. And that is all I've got time to show you today. There are 360 plus new releases, so I really would recommend heading over to the link in the description to find out everything you need to know about those, whether you want to find out some more about the new toolings that we've covered in depth on today's stream, or check out some of the many liveries and reruns of certain types of locomotive that I've not had chance to cover today. We see returning items such as further Mark 1 coaches. We see a return for the HAA hopper wagons and lots of other 4-wheel goods wagons returning in 2021 into Hornby's range too. And keep an eye on our YouTube channel and Facebook page, as over the next week or so, we will be producing a lot more content and a lot more images to show you just how much this range does cover this year. But I hope you've enjoyed this little preview. If you really want to find out more, and I really would recommend spending a couple of hours or so having a look through the list on our website, where we've got full colour pictures and, of course, all the latest release dates, digital statuses, and more information there too. Everything from the range is available to pre-order right now, and you can see the prices, release dates, etc., all on our listings. If there is something that's your favourite, if something really stands out to you from this 2021 range, we'd love to know. So please do leave a comment under the video or get in touch with our customer experience team, who'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have regarding any of these Hornby 2021 products that are coming through. If there's something I've not covered that you want a closer look at, feel free again to get in touch, or it may be something we cover in a future stream. So don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and, of course, our Facebook page for all the latest model railway videos too. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this preview. I've certainly enjoyed looking through this range today, and I'm going to go and look some further and decide what I'm going to pre-order myself from the range. Treat myself to a couple of the items that we've seen coming up there. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.